We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Judy Mera, delivering to you the latest news in and around the ASEAN region. And now to the news. Power was mostly restored in Jakarta and Indonesia's heavily populated Java Island after a widespread electricity outage Sunday that a state utility PLN blamed on disruptions at several power plants. Tens of millions of people were affected by the blackout, which plunged buildings in the sprawling capital, home to about 30 million people, into darkness and forced the temporary closure of its new mass rapid transit system. Passengers were safely evacuated from several MRT carriages when the power went out, according to the system's operator, while commuter trains were also affected. Electricity was restored by around 11 p.m. local time in most parts of the capital, nearly 12 hours after disruptions started. While the megacity has been hit by blackouts before, Sunday's shutdown was unusually long. PLN said the massive outage happened when a gas turbine at a major power plant went down and by a disruption at another facility. Both are on the western end of Java, the Southeast Asian archipelago's most populous island. Meanwhile, 5 people died and several were injured after a powerful undersea earthquake rocked Indonesia's heavily populated Java Island, triggering a brief tsunami warning, the National Disaster Agency said Saturday. The 6.9 magnitude quake on Friday evening sent residents fleeing to higher ground, while many in the capital Jakarta ran into the streets. An official from Indonesia's National Disaster Agency warned the quake could generate a tsunami as high as 3 meters or 10 feet, but the alert was lifted several hours later. Authorities said 3 people died of heart attacks as the strong quake rocked the region. Another person fell to his death while trying to flee his house when the jolt happened, while a 5th victim died from a panic attack. 4 more people were injured and more than 200 buildings were damaged, with about 13 houses destroyed.
Ada gemuruh besar, dikira ada apa, nggak taunya itu kerasa goncang gitu. Jadi pada lari orang.
Ibu lari juga ibu?
Ibu juga lari ya, takut sih. Makanya sampai sini.
Tadi sekitar sore lah, sekitar 700 di kondisinya di 3 titik. Pertama di aula sini, aula sana, kedua di puskesmas, ketiga di PGRI. Tapi juga ada di desa-desa yang tercecer.
The forest fires in Riau province in Indonesia's Sumatra Island continue to burn as the country still reels from a 6.9 magnitude earthquake that killed 5 people on the island of Java. Watch this. Emerged Saturday off the moment a bomb exploded in a Bangkok mall as the city hosted a major summit. The device apparently hidden inside a cuddly toy animal. There were 9 successful or attempted bomb blasts on Friday throughout Bangkok, which left 4 wounded, as the city hosted a regional summit attended by top diplomats, including U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Footage showed an explosion in a shopping mall minutes from the summit venue in the early hours of Friday morning, after it was apparently planted by a man dressed in a student's uniform about 12 hours earlier. The man wearing a fedora and face mask entered a store in CM Square Mall at around 3:30 p.m. on Thursday, according to the timestamps on the footage obtained by AFP. Milling around the store, he stopped at a shelf full of cuddly toy seals and polar bears and fiddled with one of them for a few seconds before placing it back on the shelf. The next video recordings showed an explosion in the store originating from the shelf around 4:45 a.m. on Friday morning, which caused a fire and a swirl of smoke as the store's sprinkler system was activated. No one was injured, and police confirmed the bomb blast. And I quote, "The staff from the store filed a complaint with the police about the blast," Colonel Tamanun Bunruwang told AFP Saturday, declining to comment on whether it was one of the 9 explosions authorities confirmed. The store remained closed on Saturday. Speculation swirled in Thailand about the motive behind the bombings, with many linking them to retaliation from the insurgency hit south for the recent arrest of a rebel suspect who was left in a coma after arriving at a notorious army camp. In other news, a new opposition party backed by the estranged brother of Singapore's Prime Minister is launched in a fresh challenge to the government as speculation mounts elections could be called soon. The Progress Singapore Party, or PSP, aiming to contest an election due by 2021, but wildly expected earlier, is led by Tan Cheng Bok, a medical doctor and former government stalwart who once ran for president and nearly defeated the establishment candidate. Take a look.
Over the years, we have witnessed many changes, some good and some not so good. Most worryingly, there seems to be an erosion of trust between the people and the government. So I invite you to come and join me. Come take home and let's work together on the many challenges for the progress of Singapore, for country, for people.
Is our most important asset, and it should always be a constant effort.
alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. Today we have a very special guest with us, Dr. Leticia Peñano Ho. She is the president of Philippine Center for Gifted Education, and she's also the former vice chancellor for student affairs in UP Diliman, and she's also the former dean of the College of Education, same school in UP Diliman. And she won the Outstanding Psychologist Award this year, 2019, an award from the Professional Regulatory Board. We are so honored to have you here, Dr. Leticia Peñano Ho. Dr. Ho.
Thank you. It's an honor to be invited here.
Okay, so you are the president of Philippine Center for Gifted Education.
Yes.
Can you tell us what is PCGE?
Well, it's a private organization that searches for the Filipino gifted. We need the gifted in the Philippines. And so far, those identified and trained for their being gifted are from the upper class. We seldom find the poor ones getting into the gifted program. So what PCGE does is to provide equity so that not only those who can afford it, but including those who are not so financially capable can avail of services, as well as getting a program to develop the gift.
Oh, so that was why it was established for this. Can you tell us first, can you describe what is giftedness?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, giftedness is considered in different ways by different countries.
Okay.
In the Philippines, we just say that we adapt whatever the U.S. defines as giftedness. But we came up, PCGE came up with our own definition.
Okay.
It's a condition. It's a condition because it's there, but it may not develop. So it's a condition that has to be attended to.
Okay.
It's a condition that results even at infancy, because heredity is a big factor in giftedness.
Oh, okay.
A big part of giftedness is heredity, so it's innate, it's hereditary. And what we've done so far is to make it more equitable. So we say that initially this is seen by above average achievements, but in consideration of what is assessed to be current and future possibilities. We do that because if you take a look at the performance of those who are financially incapable, they lack the stimulation, they lack the materials. And so if you compare them with those who can afford, then you see a gap. So we look at the above average initially, but then we consider two factors: how they are now and how they can be in the future. And that is where the assessment is very, very important. So we have tried to make it equitable, because if you don't do that, then we really don't get the poor ones. We have so far started getting in the indigenous population.
Okay.
So we started assessing the Mangyans from Mindoro.
Wow.
But we still have to go and reach the other indigenous groups that we have.
Okay. So you said hereditary.
Yes.
Heredity plays a big
A
factor.
big part of it is
Okay.
heredity.
So how do I know, for example, parents, how do they know if their child is gifted? So your description of giftedness is above average
If you look at
capability
them,
or intelligence?
if you look
or-
at them from the academic achievement,
Okay.
we can consider even just above average for the initial.
Okay.
Then we do the assessment, because you have to take a look at what is the potential. So you have the current and the potential, and you take a look at both, and you try to bring up to the potential what is the current, on the assumption that a lot of our poor students are not able to reach up only because they're so lacking in terms of materials in school and also the stimulation that they had when they're very young. You see giftedness at an early age.
Okay.
This
How?
would be in terms of developmental indicators, like for example, a very, very young child who at an early stage, when they are not supposed to look at things yet, would have their eyes moving around and following stimuli. That's one indicator, initial indicator. Or a child who walks early, that would be motor.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So there are very early developmental milestones. And what we see is that if a child is, let's say, 1 year old, the developmental milestones can even be at 5 years old. So when you see that, then you start thinking, there's a potential here. But you don't get to see the real potential when you actually do the formal assessment. But there are early indicators, and this is why what we do is to work with pediatricians. And so I work a lot with pediatricians, give them checklists. These are the things that you need to take a look at the child. And as the child grows up, then they see the indicators getting higher and higher and higher.
Aside from the indicators that you mentioned, what are those in the checklist?
It's long. It's long because you have the physical indicators, the motor, the fine motor, the gross motor. You have the language. They speak very early, and they read very early. All the things that a child at a certain age can do, they do at a much younger age. And that's definitely a sign that there is a potential.
Like what age? Like what month? Like, for example?
I cannot tell you the exact math, but for example, you have a 5-year-old who teaches himself to read and reads straight and understands what he reads. I have another one who is 7 years old, and his math ability is that of a college student.
Wow.
Yeah, so you see the gap. You see the gap. But what we want in PCGE is to be able to reach more Filipinos, because if you look at the identified gifted in the Philippines, the statistics are very poor. Very poor. Because we don't have a formal program that will really take a look at these kids and get them within the educational system and teach them and help them develop. The DepEd, Department of Education, has a program for giftedness, but at the moment I think they're trying to rewrite the policy on giftedness, and that would start from definition all the way to the program development.
Okay.
So they are rewriting that. They are trying to take a look at it again.
Just because they're so giftedness, can you call it also a disability or not?
No. When you talk about giftedness, there's an author, a Polish psychologist, who said that the gifted have extreme sensibilities. These are people whose feelings are so intense that sometimes you think that, what's wrong with this boy? Is he gifted or something else is wrong with him? For example, many of the gifted children are misdiagnosed to be ADHD. So they move around a lot. They're so interested in doing so many things.
They're restless.
They're restless, and they do several things at the same time. And in many instances, they are misdiagnosed as ADHD. A lot of the gifted have very intense emotions. Like I'll tell you, I had 2 kids with me, and I was driving them home from an activity we had, and one policeman on the street got 3 children and pulled them to one side. And the 2 cried. So I said, why are you crying? The policeman is going to hurt them. You see how sensitive they are?
Yeah.
And you can appreciate the sensitivities, but sometimes, according to Dabrowski, the Polish psychologist, he said that sometimes it becomes a disability, because then you don't understand them. That's why it is not, it's a myth to believe that the gifted can be left alone. They're gifted, they can be left alone. No. The more gifted, the more sensitivities there are, and the more need there is for consultation, for counseling.
And for
counseling
guidance.
Particularly, yes.
For counseling. So once the parents notice these giftedness characteristics of their children, where should they go?
You know, the first person that they consult is actually the pediatrician. And I'm trying to work with the pediatricians. Recently, I was with a group of pediatricians who attended a conference on giftedness, and we teach them how to identify But we have to really learn how to do it, because in many instances, the characteristics that you see in a gifted can be shown by a person, a child who has autism. But there are autistic children with autism who are gifted. We used to call them Asperger's syndrome, but now we call them twice exceptional. First exceptionality is giftedness. Second exceptionality would be autism. They
So
go
as,
together.
autism and Asperger's syndrome,
They're actually
the same?
Asperger's used to refer to the very bright autism case. But that has been removed from the DSM. It's not used anymore.
Okay.
So when you have a child with autism but is extremely bright or gifted,
Yes.
we call them twice exceptional.
So they're now no more
No more
Asperger's syndrome.
It's been stricken off as a
Why was it stricken
diagnosis.
off? Is it like
Well, they edited the DSM-5, which is the basis for all these psychiatric conditions, and they removed that. They decided all those would be just autism.
just autism? So with Asperger's now,
Just
because
all
it's the
autism.
higher, the intelligent kind.
Yeah.
So you call it twice exceptional.
Twice exceptional. Or psychiatrists would say autism with no cognitive deficits. That's how psychiatrists would define them.
So with autism, you said there are gifted
Yes,
autistic children.
yes.
Can you describe them? How
Well,
are they?
different types
Yeah,
of
different
giftedness. Like I have a boy who didn't speak until very, very much later, and he definitely was diagnosed to have autism. But then, you know, he had such good musicality, and that was his gift. And he won prizes internationally. He won prizes internationally. He's the best. I cannot say what instrument he plays because that will identify him. He plays an instrument, is the best with that instrument all over the world. He has autism. He
Yes.
spoke very late. He graduated from UP.
Oh.
Yeah. Took music.
And he was guided.
He was guided. That's why the guidance that comes initially from the parents, but they would not know what to do with the child, then you have the pediatrician who would be the first professional they can consult.
Since you mentioned about the parents, what would you say should parents do if they have a gifted child, such as autism? Let's start with autism. How do they guide them? What tips would you
With
give them?
autism, it's difficult because with autism, even if the child ends up or grows up to be gifted, there usually is a language deficit. And so you would have to have two programs together. One, which is enrichment for the very, very, like this boy I was talking about, enrichment for music.
For music,
Because
yeah.
the musicality was evident when he was in grade 2, but he was not speaking well. Now the other program would have to be remediation, or remedial, because then the speech was very inadequate, but the musicality was more than an adult's musicality. So you have two programs there. Now, with children who are merely gifted with no other exceptionality, the parents would have to identify which are the areas that the child is gifted in. But I would advise the parents not to overdo it, because like I saw one child who had an identification. He had his name, and he said gifted and proud. Gee, just say gifted if you want. But I don't like the proud there, because the pride becomes bigger than them. And so it's like, I'm gifted. It's because of the banner by which the parents have trained them or have dealt with them. It's very nice to have a gifted child.
Yes.
It's like, this is my child, he's gifted. Say something in giftedness, Iho. You see? It's very nice, but you'd have to tone it a bit, because like in the Center for the Gifted, we have a triangle which we use. On the left side, we say it's the ability, being bright or being talented. On the right side of the triangle is passion, because a person who is very bright but has no passion is like, okay. So the ability and the passion. But under would be excellence. When the two go together, can be excellence. But in the middle, which is very important right here, are values. And the values like humility is very important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very nice.
and being able to deal with people who are not as bright as they are.
Yeah.
Because the rest of the world is not bright. Diba?
Very nice. Oh, I wish we had more time, but
Yeah, there's
that's
so
all the
much
time.
to
There's
talk
so much
about
to talk about
regarding giftedness.
regarding giftedness. Yes, it's such a wide topic. Any last words for those who wants to get in touch with PCGE? Yes, can you please tell our audience?
We have the Philippine Center for the Gifted, which is actually based in my clinic. And what happens is that we can get them and help them. But the PCGE is also the only one that celebrates the Week for the Gifted. I think I want to put it in.
Yes,
the
yes,
National
please,
Week for
please
the
do.
Gifted is on the last week of November. This was declared by President Estrada.
Okay.
And during that time, we try to celebrate it as much as possible. But the celebration has been very, very little, because not everybody celebrates it like we do, and we're just a small organization. Now, we also have the mga bagong Rizal, and these are the bright to very gifted kids from grade 3 to college level. We choose them every 2 years. This year, we have the mga bagong Rizal, and they are brilliant kids who have a heart for the country. That's why we call them mga bagong Rizal.
Where do they get in touch with you? Would you like
I'll
to?
give my number.
Okay.
0917-578-6225.
Okay. 0917-578-6225.
Yeah.
For
the Philippine Center for Gifted. That's my number, but since we have no funds in the PCGE,
they can get in touch with you straight away.
Straight away with it.
Much better, though. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for our guest, Dr. Leticia Peñano Ho, the president of the PCGE. Thank you so much. I'm Alma Angeles, always one with you. Back to you, Judith.
Thank you very much, Ms. Alma Angeles, for that very special interview. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Judith Yamera, and I'm 1 with 25.